Welcome to Groth Gets It podcast. This is another exciting interview with one of our law clerks. So we have Isaiah, who has been with us all summer. So we have a number of questions. We asked everybody to bring questions. So I only have time for maybe 76 questions. I don't know if you brought more. No, I'm joking. So we only have so much time on the podcast. We can keep people's interest in this, but hopefully this will be helpful to some person, maybe one or two people who listen to this in the future. But yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
What questions do you have, sir?
I guess the first one I have is, what do you find most rewarding about your work?
What do I find most rewarding about my work? That's a very loaded question, because the assumption is, and I mean, it's for most attorneys, I think for every attorney, you do this because you want to help people, right? I mean, doctors do their work because they want to help people. You're helping humans. I mean, that's I think why we have this profession, right? So that's rewarding. I like the strategy of helping somebody. So figuring out, beginning with the end in mind and understanding what decisions they might make today, or helping them make those decisions today, and where that's going to take them throughout the process, knowing that the advice I give them will hopefully result in a favorable compensation package, I'll call it, or settlement for them, right? But yeah, what's most rewarding? Most rewarding is helping people. That's very generic, and I apologize for that answer.
It kind of leads
into
into my second question, I guess, a little bit. It is, what have you learned about people in your years practicing that you didn't necessarily know before?
Boy.
It's kind of a generic question, but it's meant to be a little bit open-ended and kind of let you go wherever you want with that.
What have I learned about people? I think it's, boy, the number of jobs, occupations, the manner in which people get by is kind of shocking, and people don't get by is kind of shocking. I mean, having the insider look on people's lives, right? I mean, we're helping people when they're in a car crash, for example, and that simple act, that car crash, totally upends their life because they're out of work for maybe it's a week and they don't have any savings. They've got nothing. That, you hear this on TV, you see, people aren't saving, or they don't have money in a 401k, or all these theoretical situations. But when you actually see it in real life and you're dealing with somebody who's on the phone or in person crying because they don't know how they're going to make ends meet, or I visit somebody at their apartment and they don't know what they're going to do. That's really the shocking part of this, is looking at society in general and seeing what's actually out there. So that's one thing that people in general that I've learned, the delicate balance that a lot of people are just living in. The other thing is expectations, and dealing with people's expectations, and words matter in how we talk with people. Some people don't have, or you have to understand somebody's background and where they're coming from so you can explain what's going on, so we're all on the same page as to what we're doing and the expectations that they have of us. And that's something that you assume, you go to law school and you assume, hey, I'm with a bunch of soon-to-be lawyers, and this is what I deal with all the time. But then you get out of law school and you're dealing with people who maybe didn't graduate from high school, or somebody who, on the flip side, is a multi-cajillionaire and never graduated from high school. And you're dealing with, how do you communicate with them, and what are the expectations about what you're going to do with them or for them. Yeah, that was kind of eye-opening. For example, I had a client who was maybe the wealthiest person I'll ever meet. And he was also maybe the smelliest person I ever met, because he was a pig farmer. in pig farmers. He came from, what do you do? Slop pigs, I guess. You slop pigs, right?
Probably.
He came from that just stunk, just disgusting smell. But
straight to the office.
he came to the office because he was signing documents, and he just wanted the sign he needed to sign documents. Came in, signed these documents, then took off. Left. But if I just met him in the hallway or in the elevator, it would be, you get this perception of what's going on, right? You'd have this stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
But then once you understand who this person is, it's like, oh man, I was not expecting that this is going on. So you have to have certainly an open mind and understand where people are coming from, and just try to help.
It's probably a very valuable insight there for sure. This next question is, I guess, something as a, I guess, first generation attorney or future attorney going to law school. There's certain perceptions of attorneys that people have in the public, and I guess in my family. And I guess the question that I wanted to ask is, what is something that is misunderstood about personal injury attorneys?
What's misunderstood about personal injury attorneys?
It's a little bit of an open-ended question.
Sure. I mean, you have the comments, the Dewey, Cheatham and Howe law firm, and the ambulance chaser kind of comments, and that the injuries are made up, things like that. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, because it's just so prevalent, so prevalent that somebody's injuries, because they're in a crash, they immediately are faking it. We have, and you've seen this, we have clients who are horrifically injured from car crashes, dog bites. I mean, we have a person who came in this week, a little kid who was bit in the face by a dog. Well, that's somebody who we're going to help out. And there's that situation where you have some clients who, some people who come to us and ask us questions, and you can tell maybe there's nothing we can do because they're at fault, but they think they're not, or their injury is related to something else and not the crash. But because of the recency of the crash, they're putting it all on the crash and then having to explain, going back to expectations. So because of that, I think you have the outside world, the non-personal injury attorneys, saying that we're trying to encourage people to fake their injuries. And there are some bad lawyers who make the rest of us look bad. But hopefully, by doing the right thing, you're going to do right by your clients, and you're going to do good for society.
Absolutely. Next question is a little bit out of left field, I guess, different than the first few. But personally, what's the best advice, either I guess in general or professionally, that an employer or boss, professor or mentor has given you?
Do the worst first.
Do the worst first.
Do the worst first. So my employer, my boss, probably 23 years ago, I worked for a general practice law firm, which means I did all kinds of general work, or drafted wills, traffic tickets, small claims, invasion of privacy trial, a lot of different stuff. Like right now, we're a niche firm. We just do victims side injury cases, right? Then I did everything. I would be meeting with somebody about drafting a will 1 hour, and then in the afternoon, I'd dictate a complaint for a lumber trespass case or whatever else it would be, whatever. Not lumber trespass, but when somebody comes and steals somebody else's wood off their property, So back then, there were some things I didn't want to do. I mean, and still, I don't want to ever draft a will or a trust for somebody. I just don't have the patience for that. So I would put it off, and then you put it off, and then you're coming up against a deadline, and then because you're procrastinating, it's not getting done. So he came in my office and he said, I understand you're doing this. I know why, but you have to do the worst first. So get in the office in the morning, if you come in at 7 a.m. and just put your nose to the grindstone is the saying or something, right? Where you do the worst first and you're going to feel better about yourself because you will have got that done. And the rest of the day is going to just feel like it's gravy because you have gotten over the hump. So that's one of the better
That's solid advice for sure. Yeah.
Better things that my employer told me. And I think I've said that phrase a gajillion times over the years. So good stuff.
It has probably a benefit for a student in law school as well, studying and what you prioritize and trying to get done and stuff too. So
sure. Yeah.
Kind of question along the same lines here. What is your favorite quote, whether it be from a movie or a book? Or
I can't repeat that. Not appropriate for our podcast. My favorite quote?
Yeah, maybe motivational, or I guess it's kind of.
It's a quote from The Godfather, but that's just because I like it because it's just hilarious, and I repeat it all the time because it's just so funny. But I can't repeat that on the podcast.
That's fair.
That's my favorite quote. What's my favorite? So ask the question again.
Your favorite.
We have the court reporter answer the question.
Favorite motivational quote or line from a book that you have read, or
oh man, I mean,
whether it be like a president or something like that.
Something that I kind of say law related. There's that quote from Abraham Lincoln, something along the lines of discourage litigation. There will always be business enough. It's something like that, right? It was many years ago. It was framed by the Waukesha civil court clerk's office or desk. It said, discourage litigation, there will always be business enough, something like that. I think that's a good one for lawyers to understand that we don't have to fight over everything. There's some things that you don't have to take every single case. Principle is expensive. I like that quote.
Yeah.
It's not really motivational, but it's a legal kind of quote that I like. Boy, but that's a great question. I think we need to think about that and then maybe have a podcast just on my favorite motivational quotes. It kind of depends on what books I'm reading and other things.
Yeah, for sure.
Right now the book I'm reading is not really a motivational book, just like a historical kind of book, so I can't think of that. Good question though.
I got
terrible answer.
No, you're good. 2 more questions for you. One is a little bit off the beaten path, and then the last one.
I think every question you ask, you say, "Well, this is off the beaten path." All right.
The question is, what is the picture downstairs in front of your office? I haven't asked you all summer.
Haven't you seen that movie?
I haven't. No.
Okay, there's a movie that is with Pierce Brosnan.
Okay.
And he's a multi-cajillionaire, and pardon me, he's a multi-cajillionaire, and he is maybe he's bored. I'm not quite sure what his deal is, and he is stealing art. And one of the things that he steals various very expensive pieces of art, and at the end of the movie, he returns the art back to where he stole it from, and he's dressed up in that particular outfit with the bowler hat and with that, and I think it's called Everyman, something like that, and it just represents that there's common man, and that's who we're working for, is every single person.
Gotcha.
And I like, for me this is probably different, but art is in the eye of the beholder, right? The apple in front of the person's face, you just don't know who you're going to help out, right? You don't know who the next person coming in the door is. You should be helping out everybody, no matter what they look like, because that's the universal apple in essence, and you have to look past that and figure out what you can do to help that person, and what where they're coming from, what your abilities are to help everyone, no matter what their background is.
Got it. And then the last question I had.
But now I forget who's the artist and what's the movie called. Are you Googling it? Come on, it's the Thomas Crown Affair, right? Did I remember it before you were able to Google it? The Thomas Crown Affair.
Thomas Crown Affair.
Have you not seen the Thomas Crown?
Unfortunately,
Oh,
no.
it's a fantastic movie. So you have to watch. Have you watched a Civil Action?
I watched the first 20 minutes.
Okay. You need to watch the entirety of a Civil Action. You need to watch The Paper Chase.
Yep.
Have you watched that one? I think we discussed that months ago.
At our first leads meeting.
All right. And then, Thomas Crown Affair is a fantastic movie. I've probably seen it 20 different times.
Is it a legal movie or is it more just kind of...
It's just a good movie.
Okay.
Yeah, just a good movie. Yeah. The Thomas Crown Affair with Pierce Brosnan.
Okay.
And I forget who's the his love interest. She's like a private investigator. I'm looking over.
Scarlett Johansson.
No, gosh, this is well before Scarlett Johansson probably wasn't even born yet.
Oh, okay.
The movie's probably from the late 80s, early 90s. It's 1999. Oh, 1999. Okay. Renee Russo. Yeah. Do you even know who Renee Russo is?
No.
Yeah, you'll have to Google her and know who she is. Yes. All right.
The last question is how do you continue learning? Obviously, you're graduated from law school and you've been practicing for 20 years, but how do you continue learning?
You read. The goal is to be a lifelong learner, period. I mean, that's what everyone's goal should be, is a lifelong learner. So reading, for me, it's there's probably dozens of podcasts that I'll listen to during a week's time. So going to conferences and watching different, CLEs. I mean, that's the thing is we're forced, as a lawyer, you're forced to be a lifelong learner because the law is always changing. There's always a different judge looking at something, or there could be different judges looking at different things. And we have to take 30-ish credits every couple of years, and then your ethics credits, so all those different things help us and force us to become lifelong learners. I think that's how do you do it? You just have to do it. Like in the morning, I wake up and I'm listening to a podcast. I brush my teeth and I'm listening to a different podcast. And I get in the car, and usually on the way to work, I'm calling staff, getting questions answered, and giving, advice. And then when I'm driving to lunch, I listen to a different podcast or something else. So that, along with it's old-fashioned, but reading the paper. I mean, we get the paper every morning. We get two papers, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, the Wall Street Journal, and just looking at what other people think is important. The media can't control what you think, but they can control what you think about. So as you're looking at a paper, you can see what other people think or what others think is important. Yeah. Like today, the front page was the Wall Street Journal, Evan Grishkovich. I can't say his last name. He was released from the Russian prison yesterday. It's big news. So that's fascinating, because then that takes you down that whole rabbit hole of spies and things like that. So then, maybe we should learn about spies. So it's being a lifelong learner.
Probably a good idea.
Interesting. Next.
That's it? That was the questions I had.
Right. Good stuff. What is the most So my question for you, what's the most interesting thing that maybe not think you learned, but your most interesting takeaway from this summer?
There was an experience, I guess. It was more of an experience, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that I will take away is I did a deposition with Ryan, and so that was really cool to be able to sit and listen and take away from that, because that's obviously something you don't really get from just sitting in a classroom learning. So being able to kind of see how that happened, that worked, and how he presented himself, and how he talked to our client beforehand, and kind of
The deposition preparation.
Correct. Like comforted her almost in a way because she was a little bit nervous. The client was actually pretty nervous. So just that presence and being able to go through that was nice to see for sure, I think.
Yeah. Kind of look behind the curtain.
Exactly.
Just the mechanics of lawyering. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right.
For sure.
Very nice. We are on time.
Alrighty.
Thank you for everything.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. Good questions, and I hope that we all agree that Groth gets it with those answers and with these questions. So good job. All right, see you next time.